The infamous Carlos Maza has just launched his own independent YouTube channel, which many people find hypocritical because he has routinely ragged on Google and YouTube and said all these things. But he did give a statement recently, and in his video explains that basically in his mind, he says there's no other game in town. He's basically correct. He says Google and YouTube are evil. He's basically correct. He says that they do damage to democracy. Yeah, once again, Carlos Maza is correct. And he says that for the time being, he will use the platform. He might as well flood it with leftist propaganda. And as far as his ideology goes, that he's actually correct on that too. I mean, listen, I think his reasoning is totally sound, but I do think the YouTube community will not stand for this. I'm not talking about YouTube politics. I'm talking about every YouTuber that was freaking out when historical channels were getting purged because he started an adpocalypse against Steven Crowder. But let me say one important thing. First, in an interview he just did, it is now, as far as I can tell, confirmed Carlos Maza got fired from Vox because of the fight he started with Steven Crowder. Basically, the blowback was so bad on the rest of Vox's properties, they said, we're canceling your show. And he says as much. I also want to add, I wish him the very best. Absolutely. I wish Carlos Maza the very best. Look, you might not like the guy. I think he's absolutely right for criticism, but I'm glad he's on YouTube, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he produces 100%. I want to hear what the people I disagree with have to say, and more importantly, I think with him on the platform, seeing how he's going to get affected by the things he's done will help open his eyes, and he will better understand. And more importantly, he has friends in high places in media, and a lot of people follow him. So I'm looking forward to him better understanding how YouTube will actually screw him over in all of these same circumstances. And perhaps if in the future he says, hey, this is actually a problem, this is hurting me and hurting my friends, you might actually see the other side come around a little bit. More importantly, however, I don't like petty games. I almost didn't even want to do this video, but I think the news is actually just too important because he basically says this is why I got, fired from Vox. No fan of Vox on my end. And I think to an extent, well, look, I guess we'll throw it's a private company, they can do what they want argument. But at any rate, I don't like playing stupid YouTube versus YouTube games. I really do hope he's successful on the platform because as much as I may disagree with Carlos and disagree with the content he's done and how he used his platform at Vox to hurt the YouTube community in general, again, not politics. I'm talking about people who make like race car videos and video game videos. I do think corporate media is substantially worse. I think corporate media has special interests and they will lie, cheat, and steal. And he was a part of that machine. I'd much rather see him as another independent leftist creator on YouTube for which we could debate. Of course, then if you debated Carlos Maza on YouTube, he would get roped into the network of evil or whatever they call it. Let's do this. Let's jump over to this article from Vox. And I've got several points I want to make before I read this. Julia Alexander of The Verge writes, Carlos Maza is back on YouTube and ready to fight. Maza is leaving Vox to pursue being a full-time YouTube creator. And they don't really talk about how he damaged, thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of personal lives that had nothing to do with politics. That his personal spat with Steven Crowder over Crowder's naughty words resulted in some people losing their jobs. It resulted in some archival institutions losing access to archival historical footage. I'm not exaggerating. That all happened. They try to deflect blame. Here's the first point I want to make. And I want to show you this part where he says, basically, here's why I got fired. He says canceled, but, same thing. When a leftist YouTuber starts a channel or starts doing well, their allies in media at these large and powerful mainstream corporations write puff pieces to promote their channels and boost their subscriber counts. They've done it to many of them. They get these long articles praising them, and because it's all positive, it allows them to use it as a source on Wikipedia to say all of these really great things about them, while simultaneously they write fake news about me and other creators so that it can go into the Wikipedia record. Insane nonsense. They actively try to hurt people who disagree with the leftist narrative, especially liberals. This is what a lot of conservatives don't believe. They've always hated the conservatives, but they think liberals stand in their way because we're on the left, but stopping them from fomenting a revolution. So they really, really don't like us. People like Maza will work at Vox. He'll say all of these things that are entirely destructive to YouTube and the company he works for, resulting in his removal. And The Verge, which is a Vox.com property, will then promote his channel after he's gone. Now, what ends up happening is when you look at the outrage campaigns, which for some reason work because Silicon Valley venture capital backs these media companies, you can see that on my channels, I no longer get recommended. Straight up, recommendations are down 95%. And then you look at these leftist YouTubers, who I don't want to call out because I don't have any personal beef with them necessarily, and their recommendations are down a little bit, but still maintaining themselves. So a better example is, a better way to describe it, my channel almost exclusively redirects to Fox News. Why? I've had a lot of high-level conversations with YouTube and networks, and I've asked, when you watch Tucker Carlson and he talks about immigration and all of these issues, he gives you a hard conservative perspective. When you watch me, I'm actually to the left of Tucker. I'm a moderate. So why does it make sense to send my viewers to Fox News? Are you trying to make them hear a more conservative perspective if they're interested in a more moderate perspective? But better yet, why are you sending Jimmy Dore's Bernie Sanders supporting followers to Fox News as well? And that's what they're doing. And it's the result of campaigns from people like Maza. Now, again, I'm not taking any personal swipes at Carlos. I think his video is actually not too bad. I don't think it was too good. I'm not trying to, I think he launched his first video, and I really do mean it when I say I hope he does well. But I know this. I know that the YouTube community is not going to stand for it. This guy caused way too much damage. He hurt way too many people. And he didn't seem to care. And now he comes to this platform expecting to use it, even though I understand it is basically the only game in town. I think he made good points on that. I just think you're going to see all of his videos brigaded, and they're going to push him off the platform. Well, maybe he'll just stay on it regardless of all of the downvotes he ends up getting. But I can't imagine. Listen, I'm not talking about conservatives. I'm not talking about political commentary. I'm literally talking about gaming YouTube channels that saw the revenue decline and the fans of those channels and those Minecraft channels. And they're going to be like, this is the dude that tried to hurt all of us and the people we love. Has nothing to do with politics. Let's read this story, though, just a little bit, because admittedly, The Verge is giving him a puff piece since promoting his channel. His channel isn't particularly big right now or anything, but because of what Carlos did with his platform at Vox, I think this is particularly news relevant. But the most important thing, what we all speculated, that Carlos Maza was fired from Vox because of the fight he started with Steven Crowder. He now confirms this. Carlos Maza himself confirms this. Now, I will try and clarify because I do want to avoid being a bit hyperbolic. I say Carlos Maza started the fight with Crowder because while Crowder can be bombastic or condescending or even mean, okay, someone responding to you when you make a YouTube video is not starting a fight with you. It's a political argument. Now, you can argue that Crowder used naughty words and all that stuff, but look, I looked at a bunch of Maza's videos. He calls himself these names. So if you're trying to play into the framework he's created, he's basically said, I'm going to call myself this. And then if you respond in that way, he's then going to be like, oh no, look, he's calling me names. Personally, I wouldn't say the things that Steven Crowder said. He's also a comedian who says offensive things. There is a line, and it's difficult to know where it is, but it's certainly not banning Crowder. And you want to have a discussion about how we do back and forth between YouTubers, fine. But I think everything that happened was a ridiculous net negative for literally everybody. And the person who initiated the conflict, who went after advertisers and launched the campaign and would not relent, was Carlos Maza. Now, my speculation was that Carlos Maza got fired, not necessarily because he started the fight, or escalated to an extreme degree, but because he would not stop. When I saw every tweet he was putting out that was like, Crowder, 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 YouTube, Crowder, Crowder, I can only imagine the higher-ups at Vox were like, dude, chill, calm down, stop talking about this, you're becoming obsessed, and he wouldn't do it. So eventually they were like, enough. Well, apparently what's happened is that the blowback, the people going to other Vox videos and just downvoting to oblivion had a serious impact on their network, and they said, you're done. We're getting rid of you. So guess what? Cancel culture worked, and Carlos Maza got canceled. That's actually what he says. So The Verge writes, he's back on YouTube and ready to fight. His video, if you watched it, is very similar to ContraPoints, where he has these multiple characters. But it's really funny that he literally says centrists are basically fascists. It's the weirdest thing, but he does. But hey, your opinion's your opinion. So let's go down. Actually, let me just read. Okay. Here's a quote. The YouTube situation that happened over the summer. Before it happened, I think I made one video about YouTube. I wasn't interested, Maza says. It just happened to become inevitable to talk about the platform as it existed because it effed with my ability to do my job. Now YouTube is one of the biggest threats. It's how a huge chunk of the public gets their news. Threats. I'll tell you the reality. People choose what they want to see. There's no algorithmic nightmare, and he just doesn't like the fact that his ideas are substantially less popular. He says, or they want to say, it's easy to question why Maza is moving to YouTube if he detests the company so much. YouTube remains one of the few platforms for user-generated content in a video on-demand format that allows creators to monetize their work and reach a massive audience. Many popular YouTube creators have publicly spoken about being willing to leave YouTube for an alternative platform if there was an alternative. And Julia, I believe, got comments for me on this exact same issue, which I think is a good point to make. This is why look, you want to argue someone's opinions. Absolutely. I do not believe that, Carlos Maza is worthy of insult or derision because of, to an extent, because of his opinions. I think his opinions are worthy of criticism and debate. I think if you want to be derisive over what he did to YouTube, it's an entirely different story, though I'm someone who tries to avoid that. So I will stress, I really do sincerely mean it. I hope he does well on the platform. I think a robust debate between various ideas is a good thing. And I think him getting a real perspective as to what YouTube does to his ideas will be good. That being said, because of his allies in media, it's negatively impacting those who don't hold leftist views. So it could be a net detriment, but let's read on. He says, I effing hate that I have to use this platform because there's nowhere else to go. Not entirely true. Okay. There are many other platforms, but if you want to use YouTube, YouTube is managed by bad people and it's evil in ways that people don't recognize. The company truly does not give a F about the damage it does to democracy. Yeah. And for me, my perspective is the damage you helped cause. That's the damage you helped cause towards democracy. He says, I'm kicking and screaming working with the company in that way, but it's only because there's absolutely nowhere else to go. I mean, that's just absolutely not true. There's Vimeo, there's BitChute, there's Minds, there's a bunch of other platforms you can use. You could upload your videos to Facebook or Twitter. The reality is Maza wants to make money. That's why he uses YouTube. Let me be honest. I use YouTube because I'm running a business, but I'm not a socialist. I am unabashedly capitalist, knowing that YouTube, with all of its faults, is the best course to sustaining my business, growing an audience, and making money. I'd prefer competition. I'd like to see it emerge. For the time being, I have no problem saying that. Hey, guess what? YouTube makes money. Now, Maza claims to be ideologically driven and hates the platform, but in the end, it's because it's the fastest way for him to get paid. If he was truly, wanting to use Patreon or other platforms, he could upload to anything else. A lot of progressives and anti-war leftists use Minds, for instance, and BitChute is certainly available. They say, monetization isn't simple on YouTube, though. Certain subjects that aren't considered advertiser-friendly may not be able to run ads, and creators have accused YouTube of suppressing views for videos that deal with sensitive subject matters. YouTube executives have denied these allegations in the past. I think it's extremely likely Maza will be hard demonetized across the board. Listen, he in his introductory video, he says he's proud Antifa. Okay, well, that's not monetizable. It's not. I know for a fact. Criticizing them is not monetizable. Supporting them certainly won't be. So I really doubt. I think he might put out ideas that are going to be really, really sensitive. They say he doesn't expect to earn much money, but they go on to say he's going to use Patreon like many other people. If I thought that was the case, sure. I don't think so, though. I think he wants to be on YouTube for the ad revenue. So let's get to the point where he got fired. Here's a quote. It's not because I want to be another Crowder on YouTube, but I think I'm better at my job being independent. I do think YouTube is part of the future of political commentary and political debate. There's good and bad to that. That means someone like me could survive viably on YouTube. It also means that complete A-hats, people with no research, and who are motivated by pure ideology can also do well on YouTube. I mean, is that the ideology part, is that a reference to yourself? Because Maza's driven by ideology. I mean, he makes a video where he says centrists are basically fascists or bootlickers. And then he says, how could you be a centrist and a fascist? And they go, And he makes a point like he actually thinks that. Like, there's a whole other quadrant of the political compass. So he's absolutely driven by ideology. And most people to an extent are. Now, here we go. Here's the juicy bits. Maza feels being independent offers him more trust from viewers as well. He says he was frustrated during the Crowder controversy in part because much of the criticism he received was from people who considered him a cog in the NBC Universal machine. Well, how convenient that NBC Universal got substantial damage to one of its major competitors, YouTube, when he was making these videos. And unsurprisingly, when he started causing damage to them, which he then explains, they cut him loose. He says there is no organizational or editorial overlap between the two companies, NBC and Vox. People saw Crowder as an independent pundit, Maza says, but he felt they couldn't see past Vox or NBC Universal when looking at his criticism over YouTube's policies. That's because you were funded and promoted by a massive $200 million investment. Crowder had to build up his channel over time without that help from major networks. I don't know if Crowder brought in investment, but he did gradually build up his channel over a very, very long period of time. You, on the other hand, were given the megaphone by a mega corporation. So yes, you were a cog in their machine. Ultimately, they didn't like it, though, and here's where it gets good. Strikethrough, his show, was officially canceled in July 2019. Vox.com decided to end the show, citing a lack of editorial support. Maza says. He added that Strikethrough was becoming, quote, too much of a logistical and resource investment. Plus, blowback against Strikethrough was beginning to hit other parts of the team. Every Vox.com producer, this is a quote, every Vox.com producer, not just me, was getting their comments section wrecked, and a lot of blowback in general, says Maza. As the situation escalated, Maza felt like he put Vox.com in a tricky position. He said, I'm a media critic and my job is to critique the media. It's harder to do that while working with a corporate media company. Going independent has always been a dream. To criticize actors that you like, go beyond Fox News and the far right. Ideally, you want to be a media critic without being penalized by your employer, so that's the goal. It felt safer and smarter to go independent. I absolutely applaud this, and I mean this sincerely. Carlos Maza and the entrepreneurial spirit about why you should be your own boss. You will always be accountable to somebody else, someone who will pay you for some reason. You know, when I was younger, I always said, I want to be my own boss. And my dad said to me, who's going to pay your bills? Who's going to give you money? I'm like, I don't know, my customers. And he's like, so if the customer tells you to do something and you don't do it, guess what? You don't get paid. Congratulations. There's always someone you'll be accountable to. It is different being your own boss, though, especially on YouTube. I can make the content I want. Now, let's take a look back at what he said. They say Strikethrough was officially canceled in July of 2019. They decided to end the show, citing lack of editorial support. Okay, maybe it's fair to say they just wanted to cancel his show that got like 1 million views per video that the left really loved because of editorial support. I would be surprised if they couldn't afford to do it. But then he says they were getting blowback as the situation escalated. Maza felt like he put Vox in a tricky position. It's clear as day. I'm going to give you my personal opinion based on what he said. He did say, okay, in no uncertain terms, because of, the escalation, the situation was escalating, all of these other Vox properties were getting blowback. To me, that sounds like the real reason why he was terminated. That's why they canceled the show. Listen, too much of a logistical and resource investment. What does that mean? In my opinion, the damage done to the Vox.com YouTube channel and properties because of the blowback was costing too much money. He was obsessed. He was relentless on Twitter. And he's basically said, at least in part, he's confirmed the blowback against Strikethrough. Okay. He didn't come out and say, they fired me because of Crowder. I want to make sure that's clear. I want to be as fair as I can. He did say, however, it was editorial support, plus the blowback was beginning to hit other parts of the team. There it is. Maza couldn't let the fight go. It was bad for Vox.com. It was bad for YouTube. And why would YouTube do a continued deal with Vox, which apparently they've done, if he's actively trashing the platform, causing YouTube serious harm? Think about it simply. It wasn't just the blowback to Vox, although Carlos Maza has confirmed that. It was that YouTube was taking hits across the board. Video game creators, celebrities, podcasts, literally everybody lost money. Historical archives were shut down. YouTube went in full panic mode, in my opinion, because they're spineless and terrified when they shouldn't be. They have tremendous leverage. And it was because of one man, Carlos Maza. That brings me to my final point. Listen, there is data published by a researcher named Mark Ledwich, and you can see everyone has taken an algorithmic hit. YouTube is now promoting Fox News and MSNBC over most political commentary. The leftists who do philosophy and talk about issues like socialism are fine, but the people who use political party references are having all of their audience members pushed to Fox News and MSNBC. Major podcasts have taken huge hits, even news organizations. And it's all because of one man who was upset over the naughty words from one of his critics. Now, of course, The Verge and all these other outlets will say Crowder was harassing him. Very light definition of the phrase. Steven Crowder used naughty words. He was potentially mean-spirited, if that's what your interpretation, but grow up. If you think it was bad then, wait till you see what happens now that you're coming to the platform you caused serious damage to. Wait till you see what happens when the people who have lost their entire careers because of you see you now trying to use that platform on your own. Personally, I'd like to see him do well. I mean that for literally everybody. If your ideas deserve to succeed, so be it. But I will absolutely condemn and criticize his underhanded tactics, and I think he deserves harsh criticism for what he's done. I do not play petty games, so I'm not going to say, I'm not going to insult him. No, I think it's fair that he wants to enter the fray and do what he's going to do. But don't be surprised when people start talking about what you've done, criticize you for doing it, and make videos like this over it. I am probably not, I'm not one of these people who finds a YouTube video from someone like, Ruben or H-Bomber guy, and I'm like, look how dumb they are. I don't do that. I hate that. And I think it's absolutely silly how many people take videos from me and then base their whole world on what some dude in his basement thinks when he talks on YouTube. I get it. We're all gaining influence. Joe Rogan had a serious impact on the election and the news cycle. He's the biggest in the world, okay? So there's a difference between me and Carlos Maza and, ContraPoints and David Pakman or Steven Crowder. Crowder is particularly influential. He is. So if you're working for a major corporation like Vox, I think it's absolutely fair to criticize the major corporation. It's the idea of punching up, right? You'll never see me play a game going after silly little YouTubers. I did a video criticizing Rogan when he had Jack Dorsey on, and that's because Joe Rogan's the biggest in the world. But even when I do that, I try not to be, mean about it for the most part. So for the time being, I know that doing this video will probably result in a lot of people being, mad. Please don't direct your ire to his channel. Please don't do any of that stuff. I can't stand that. The only reason I want to do the story is because Carlos is extremely influential. Even if his channel is small right now, he had a massive impact on the world, whether he wants to admit it or not. And I think it was for the negative. I think he hurt democracy very much so. You're not going to see me make videos about tiny little YouTube creators or people who are even, it's crazy to me. There could be somebody who has a similar size channel to me. I'm not going to make a criticism video going after him. I've done one or two things like that in the past. I'm just totally over it. I want to talk about things that are important. I want to talk about high profile personalities and politicians, things that are impacting the world. There may be some talk of YouTubers like this, Carlos Maza coming from, an NBC property, but I really, really can't stand how petty people can be on YouTube when they just love the TMZ style. Like, there's one creator who just loves to screen grab my videos and then just make stupid commentary, and it works and he makes money. I'm not going to play that game. I want to talk specifically about what Carlos Maza did, the impact of his fight with Crowder, and I really do mean it when I say I wish nothing but the best for everybody. You know what it is. If your idea is good enough, then so be it. But if Carlos Maza starts doing what he did at Vox and tries damaging people's livelihoods with deceit and misinformation or anything like that, I'll absolutely criticize the guy. And it's not because he's on YouTube, it's because he literally is a personality with influence who has impacted the world. I think it's fair to criticize anybody, so I'll leave it there. As much as a lot of people are going to get angry, they're like, stop defending him. Oh, no, you know what, man? You got to be careful. You got to be tactful. You have to approach your conflicts with poise and dignity and integrity. And I very much so look forward to challenging his ideas when it's merited. But I do not like derision and brigading and insulting. I think that's pathetic. All right, let's see what Carlos Maza has to say. Let's see how his opinions change now that he's on YouTube. But I think it's fair to point out, you don't got to be like me. You do you. Okay. I just prefer civility because I'm that enlightened centrist, aren't I? But I'd prefer, people not brigading and insulting. However, it doesn't matter what I think. I'm not the boss of you or anybody else. So I think the YouTube community is going to be furious that he is now trying to start a channel because he wants to make money. If he didn't want to make money, he'd go launch a channel on any other platform because there are other video hosting platforms. I mean, Vimeo, obviously, but there are smaller video hosting platforms he could easily go to. And there's a lot. He doesn't want to. He wants to use the YouTube platform to make money after he just ruined the careers of many, many people. I don't think the YouTube community would stand for that. That's just me. Other than that, I'm going to mind my own business. I'm not going to talk about the guy beyond, this issue. But I did think it was extremely important when we heard the blowback to Vox was so bad that he felt it contributed to his cancellation. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.